Hey everyone, Sparrow here. Hello, fancy seeing you twice in 1 week. This is a bonus episode with a small aviary build because the grizzly bear speed build was already quite long and I got some requests for an informal tutorial for the aviary, so here it is. This will also be a good chance to chat about the new DLC that's coming. After the live stream on Monday and the trailer drop on Tuesday, we certainly have a lot to talk about, but that will come later. First, let's set up the bones of our aviary. So I am using these stained wood wall pieces, and these pieces are on the grid. I mapped out the general shape of the building first, and now we'll focus on building one wall that we can easily copy. As with most aviaries, we'll be using mesh along with some metal beams and a wooden slat to finish off the top of the wall nicely and give a sort of ledge that I much later attached a railing to make sure guests are staying far enough away and not sticking their fingers through the barrier. Once this piece of the wall is complete, we'll be able to copy it over onto our pre-planned segments, and because we're using a grid piece, the entirety of our custom built wall should just snap into place. We'll clean up our corners and make sure everything is nicely aligned, but it's a pretty short cleanup. The portion that took me the longest in terms of walls was the curved section that we'll return to in just a moment. I did something similar with the beaver lodge over on the other side of the zoo, and I really liked how it turned out. So here I just measured out a 1 meter segment using the mesh, lining it up with the existing mesh for a seamless look, then added some short metal beams, and then I was ready to copy it over the rounded wood wall. I did use the advanced rotation here to line everything up as perfectly as possible. You can see me moving the wall until the metal beam is just hidden from view within the wood. I believe we end up with 5 panels, so it wasn't too bad and didn't take too long. I do hope this aviary is large enough for the great gray owls that I ended up putting in here. Great grays are some of the largest owls we have in Canada. Actually, I wonder what their wingspan is. Okay, so update. Did some really quick research, and apparently their wingspan can get up to 1.5 meters. So if we remember that these wall pieces are 4 meters each, then I think they have enough room. There's slightly over 100 meters squared in this aviary, and the Ostrava Zoo has a 64 meter squared great gray owl aviary. So I think we're good. I did use blueprints in this build because, how can you not when things like this gorgeous aviary prop pack exist? Awesome collection of feeders, birdhouses, perches, even transport cages, and other random pieces that help the aviary come to life. Here I'm just adding a fake door using some of the shutter pieces that could potentially be opened to allow the owls to come in and out of the building. There will be a small caged off portion within this already tiny structure where zookeepers can monitor the birds if necessary. I did play around with a few different positions for this, but that wood log ends up rotated and running lengthwise along the building to give more room for the owls to enter and exit through this door. Wouldn't want them accidentally flying into the edge of the log. No, our mission at True North Sanctuary is to rehabilitate the animals, not to hurt them further. Now, for the divider in the building, I did have to put the wall in a different group because the grid piece wasn't snapping where I wanted it to. But I think this is one of the few buildings in the zoo that is mostly all one group. Slid things over just a little bit to better fit the interior, had to move the metal beams to the inside of the walls to make it look like the mesh is secured. And then I added a lockbox, which comes from the Twilight Pack, as a small door that keepers can use to throw food into the cage. Then we're finally going to add our owls. These are Mealy's owls off of the workshop. We actually have one of these sitting in the corner of the Red Fox educational area, but that one is supposed to be taxidermied and not a live owl like these ones. To fill up this rounded portion and break up the viewing area, I decided to make a raised planter by just copying the slats that cover the wall edge. Spun around, lowered a bit, used the same slats to create the walls, and then added some mulch. This planter ended up being only Labrador tea and ferns, but I think it adds a nice floral touch to the aviary. So while I add foliage, rocks, branches, and such to the aviary, let's talk new DLC. After much speculation about an upcoming Temperate or Highlands pack, the next DLC announcement actually revealed an Oceania pack. The Frontier team teased a livestream where they mixed things up, and my mind immediately went to cocktails and mixology, which was actually what ended up happening. The devs mixed 5 mocktails, each one assumed to hint at an animal we'll be getting in the Oceania pack. Now, I guessed the first 4 correctly, but the final one was up in the air, quite literally, and I'll talk about my kind of disappointment with that one as we chat about the animals revealed. So without further ado, the animals we'll be seeing in the Oceania pack are the Tasmanian devil, the quokka, the North Island brown kiwi, and the little blue penguin. Our walkthrough exhibit animal this pack is the spectacled flying fox, which will also be cool to see flying around. However, my disappointment with this last one is that the mocktail that teased it was called the citrus blossom, and it was a yellow drink topped with edible flowers, which made me think that we were finally getting some sort of birds in the game. My first guess was hummingbirds, but rainbow lorikeets or parrots also fit the bill, so I guess I just hyped myself up and the bat didn't feel as awesome as it should have. In addition to the animals, we are also getting a bunch of new scenery, and as I guessed with the Tiki Bar livestream, it looks to be very beachy with plenty of netting pieces, new thatch, and also a new path. The trailer also revealed what appears to be volcanic rock, detailed rock walls, faux lava maybe, and the new plants, I'm very excited for these, include new palms, including the Nikau palm, which is the only palm native to mainland New Zealand, massive ferns, and beautiful new flowers as well. If you haven't seen the DLC trailer yet, it will be linked in the description, so make sure to check it out and spot all of these items for yourself. While these animals won't be particularly useful here at True North Sanctuary, I am very excited to add them to the roster for my Australian zoo, because the species list for that one was quite low. So what was previously only 13 animals, 4 of which are exhibit species, we are now up to 18 for that region of the world, which still falls incredibly short of how many African and Asian animals we have in-game, but is more than the number of European animals we have. Perhaps the next DLC will add some more of those. Sadly, my hope for real flying birds is starting to disappear, since this would have been a great pack to include those in. I don't think we'll see them anytime soon, or perhaps not at all, and flying birds will be a major selling point of a PlanetZoo 2 sometime in the future. So for now, I'll keep building my aviaries for the workshop birds by the amazing Mealy, Drac, and Jaguar X, who do fantastic work. If you are interested in seeing those, Drac actually dropped a massive bird pack today, so I will link that in the description as well. But speaking of, let's get back to this aviary build. Within the building, I used some decals to dirty up the floor, make it look a little bit like bird poop, and then I just raised the barriers a bit higher because the aviary was looking too short. The top will be covered over with mesh as well, so our birds can't just fly away, and I'm imagining that it might be covered with canvas during the winter to prevent too much snow from getting in. I have seen my local zoo do that at times. To get this corner filled in, I went into each section and rotated the beams up and towards the intersection one at a time to make sure they were all at the correct angle. A little bit slower because it's one at a time, but it does help with making sure everything is lined up perfectly. Now, I have also been using the position snap tool a lot more lately, and that's what allowed me to just quickly add on these further beams to the end. Then I just had to slide them back to make sure they weren't sticking too far into the aviary. The mesh pieces will stick out past the beams just a little bit, but it didn't bother me too much, so I just left it. The overlap isn't super visible from the sides of the aviary, so it shouldn't bother too much during the cinematics. The final touches include adding some foliage and rocks outside of the aviary, and then adding some vista points to make sure guests actually stop and look at the birds in here, because PlanetZoo guests are not programmed to look at animals that are made out of building pieces. We'll recolor those to the TNS color and then move on to creating a barrier between the guest and staff area. For this, I just used 2 logs and hung a rope between them along with a do not enter sign. Also added some coiled rope to the logs to make it look like the rope was actually attached. It's all those little details that make things come together. Because of the uneven terraforming near the door to the aviary, I couldn't get the path all the way there, so the solution was to cover up the edge of the path with some soil-colored decals to hide where the path ends. And that's pretty much it. Going to cover up the sightline to this backstage area from the salmon run with more rocks, and then we'll head into some cinematics. Thank you for joining me today for this extra video. Let me know in the comments which DLC animal from the new Oceania pack you are most excited for, and also remember to like this video if you enjoyed it. To see the continuation of True North Sanctuary, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of each new upload. See you next time. Bye!